on the issue of political competition and law and order. Politics is not about the livelihood of leaders. To solve the problem of jobs for some people. It is about the destiny of peoples. That destiny is guided by principles that arise from the analysis and the determination of how the respective societies can be safe and prosperous. In the case of Uganda, in the 1960s, our student movement disagreed with the sectarian politics of that time of religion and tribe. We eventually distilled our principles of love, Uganda, patriotism. Why? It is because you need it. Countrymen and countrywomen, greetings and congratulations to all of you for safely finishing the year 2025. Mama Janet and myself wish everybody a prosperous 2026 and beyond. I'm happy to report to all Ugandans and the world that as we stand today, our economy is robust. The majority of the population are very happy, as you have been seeing the massive and extremely happy rallies I have been addressing. The country is peaceful, and our armed forces are at their strongest. Some of the obstacles created by some unpatriotic elements notwithstanding. By June 2026, the size of the economy will be US dollars 68.4 billion by the foreign exchange method, and US dollars 194.2 billion by the purchasing parity method, purchasing power parity method. The GDP per capita will be US dollars 1,399, meaning that Uganda is now firmly in the lower middle income status and out of the least developed countries status. All this is compared to US dollars 3.92 billion by 1986. In other words, the economy has grown 13 times in size since 1986. In quantitative terms, you can go item by item. Coffee exports were 3,060,000 kilogram bags in 1986, and they are now 8.2 million 60 kilograms bags. Bananas, 6.6 million metric tons, and now 11 million metric tons. Maize, production was 322,000 metric tons, but now it is 4 million metric tons. Milk was 200 million liters, but now it is 5.4 billion liters. Sugar was less than 100,000 metric tons, but now it's about 700,000 metric tons. Cement was 76,000 metric tons. It is now 7 million metric tons. Steel products were 50,000 metric tons, but they are now 630,000 metric tons. From almost no tourist arrivals to now about 1.6 million tourists arriving in a year. From less than 1,000 hotel beds to now about 150,000 hotel beds, etc. As I've told you before, our economy has now gone through 5 phases. And these are the minimum recovery phase, the expansion of the small recovered colonial and neo-colonial economy phase, diversification of that economy by converting more products into cash products, value addition to some of the raw materials, and finally entering the knowledge economy of making computers and vehicles and so on. We have even entered a new phase when our export earnings for goods and services are exceeding our import bill of US dollars 11.03 billion. The export earnings are US dollars 13.4 billion. This means we have got more than $2 billion surplus on the account. Our exports earnings are more than our import bill. Yes, we still have poor people. We still have unemployed graduates. We still have some bad roads because of under-budgeting for them and corruption. However, all these will be solved. Why? It is because we have already moved 70% of the homesteads into the money economy. Yet, by 2013, only 32% of the homesteads were in the money economy. A whole 68% were still abakorera ekida kyonka, teach, me each keken, working only for the stomach. At independence in 1962, only 9% of the households were in the money economy. By 1960, in our sub-county of Ntungamo, with its 8 parishes of Nyaburuza, Chikoni, Chiora, Kahunga, Musana, Nyarware, Murisa Ruenkote, and Watete's parish, I was not aware of any family that had entered the money economy other than the 6 Indian and Arab shops at the Ntungamo Trading Center, and the limping small shops of Misi at Musana, Boatete on the way to Nyartuntu, and Tinkasimire at Ntera. Therefore, seeing that 70% of the families are in the money economy now is a qualitatively new phenomenon for Uganda. Apart from peace, economic and social infrastructure, what is crucial for the masses are the personal issues of poverty, education for the children, health, and jobs. NRM has for a long time designed solutions for these mass issues. Nobody who is sincere can say that the NRM has ever overlooked or has never identified and provided for these issues. Right from 1997, the NRM provided for both UPE and Ntandikwa. We then added NADS, Operation Wealth Creation, Emioga, the Youth Fund, the Women Fund, universal secondary education, etc. Targeting what? Targeting poverty and free education for the children of the poor. However, just like the Jews did not believe that Jesus was the Messiah, some groups are always not bothering to understand or use these solutions. Those who listened are doing very well. You need examples? Here are some. These are Rashida of Utambara, Apio of Lira, of the Lira area, Ogira of Abim. There are millions of them. When I fly over the cattle corridor and see the nice, well-fenced, bush-cleared farms of the dairy and beef cattle in the previous Irungu wilderness of that zone of our country, I fly over the Masaka-Raka Isembabwe area with the coffee gardens in maybe 60% of the homes. I fly over Kalangara with the palm trees for oil. I fly over the Teso area with the citrus gardens, over Bunduwijo and Mukono areas with the cocoa and coffee gardens, over the Bushenyi Sinjiro areas with the banana gardens, over the Zombo areas with the Arabic coffee, over the Bujus areas with Arabic coffee, etc., etc. You realize that our efforts have not been in vain, and anybody who downplays these achievements is an enemy of Uganda. This is even before you talk about the huge sugarcane plantations in Busoga and Bunyoro, the palm oil plantations in Maruzi, Lango, the sugarcane plantations in the Ruweru and Nakasiki areas, or the Kayunga areas. Have you seen the magnificent tea estates in the Toro, Ankora, and Kigezi areas? With the tea, there is the temporary problem of low prices. However, the people in the tea sector have assured me that the price is only affected by the failure to use fertilizers and bad picking methods. All this is just in the commercial agricultural sector. How about manufacturing and services? Have you heard that Uganda has now got more than 50,000 factories, employing over 800,000 people? The services sector has created 6 million jobs, and the hotels now have 150,000 hotel beds. The commercial agricultural sector is now employing 3.8 million people. The IC sector is employing 2.3 million people. These figures have been given to me recently by finance. There were others which had been given, but they say these are the correct ones. Therefore, the issue of wealth and jobs has solutions for those willing to listen. The issue of free education started well in 1997, and it worked well for some years. The number of children, a total of 20 million children, got free education for primary and secondary schools. Then the local elite came in and started extracting money from the poor families for commercialized education. That has led to the children dropping out of school. You can check district by district the completion rate between the primary and the secondary school bridges and thereafter. This betrayal will be defeated with adequate budgeting for teachers enough in numbers to remove the pretext by the local elite of saying that they are milking money from the poor in order to hire more teachers. I'm providing completely free education at my skilling hubs. Yet my effort is more costly than the UPE USC option that ought to be day schools because they are near the population, unlike my hubs that can only be boarding because of distances. The whole education system will now emphasize the issue of skills, emyoga. The pre-colonial Uganda was of communities of emyoga. Abarisa, cattle keepers, Abahingi, cultivators, Abahesi, blacksmith, Abatanaji, bow and arrow makers, Abanogozi, the clay users, Abaremi, the shoemakers, Abakomaji, the backcloth makers, Abajenji, the surgeons, Abafumu, the healers, Ababunji, the bone setters, etc., etc. Yes, there were administrators, Abami, chiefs, but there were few. Not the colonial and neo-colonial distortion, when the non-wealth creators are in hundreds of thousands, while the wealth creators are not as numerous as they need to be. It is therefore correct that the education system goes back to the strategy of modernized emyoga. Part of the health strategy, although partially implemented, has worked very well. This is the strategy of prevention through immunization, hygiene, good lifestyle, nutrition, safe water, etc. Although it is only immunization and safe water that have really been worked on, it has improved the average life expectancy from 43 years to 68 years. However, there is the problem of curative that is still outstanding. That problem is tied up with the problem of obtafayo, not bothering with important things. It is tied up with the issue of corruption. I happen to have been here in the times of the British, the time of independence, and after. In all that time, I saw the corruption of the public servants. That is the chiefs, the veterinary personnel, the medical personnel, the school teachers, etc. When we were in the bush, I told the NRM leadership that we could not trust the public servants to serve our people honestly. I therefore proposed that we add our own structures elected by the people to supervise the interests of the people. You have that power to elect the LC1s, LC2s, LC3s, LC5s, members of parliament, councillors, etc. These are the ones to report corruption and other misconduct in the area, especially the ones being paid by the state. Those are the LC3 chairperson, the member of parliament, and the LC5 chairperson and other officials. What has happened is corruption, land grabbing, etc., happening in Congo or Uganda. If it is happening in a locality in Uganda, where there is a galaxy of all those elected and paid leaders, why do they not expose the problem? Yes, the government has another galaxy of actors, accountants, auditors, etc. We shall continue trying to bring them to Jesus Christ and Muhammad for salvation, to save them from corruption, and also axe the incorrigible ones. However, when my strategy of the LC system works, it will be a game changer. Recently, near Mpigi town, I engaged some Bazukul there that were talking about corruption. I told them to elect serious leaders, serious people that guard their interests, the interests of the people. That was why the LC system was designed. Finally, on the issue of political competition and law and order, politics is not about the livelihood of leaders. To solve the problem of jobs for some people. It is about the destiny of peoples. That destiny is guided by principles that arise from the analysis and the determination of how the respective societies can be safe and prosperous. In the case of Uganda, in the 1960s, our student movement disagreed with the sectarian politics of that time of religion and tribe. We eventually distilled our principles of love, Uganda, patriotism. Why? It is because you need it for your prosperity. If you are a wealth creator and not a parasite, you need Uganda as a market for your products. Banyankole do not buy my milk. They do not buy my beef or buy my bananas because they are producing similar products. It is the people of Kampala that buy my products. I also buy the products from other parts of Uganda. Sugar from Busoga, Buganda, and Bunyoro, vegetable oil from Karangara, textiles from Buganda, etc. The second principle is that we should love Africa, Pan-Africanism. Why? It is because the internal market of Uganda is not enough. However, we cannot benefit from these two markets unless we undergo socio-economic transformation by migrating from Okore Chida Chonka to working for Echida, the stomach, and Ensawo, the pocket, with Echibaro, Chura, Aymar, Otita, the calculation for profit. Then the fourth principle is democracy. It is people that believe in these principles, which is the only way to prosperity, that I associate with politically. It is unprincipled for one to fight somebody that fights these principles. Instead, you should discuss among those who believe in these principles to determine who should represent us here or there according to the suitability. The moment you see political positions as a means of living, you then become a problem for your country. Since 1971, we left well-paying jobs to fight Idi Amin. Why? It is because we were sure that he would block our vision of patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy. Previously, we had been massaging Obote because there was a possibility that he could move with us on Pan-Africanism. For example, the East African Federation. Therefore, the political actors should stop the pseudo-politics of me, because it is not only barren, but very destructive for countries. On the issue of law and order, you have been seeing the indiscipline and anarchic conduct of some of the opposition, guided by the wrong politics in their heads and prompted by parasitic foreigners that back them. They make many mistakes. These include transporting audiences to create the image of big crowds at the venues. Those arrested following Mr. Chaguranyi at Mile 4 in Mbarara confessed that they had a fleet of possibly 200 vehicles transporting those nomadic audiences. You then have the Kyagulanyi schemes of causing chaos in the country on behalf of the foreigners that fund them and back them. Mr. Kyagulanyi and his evil foreigners that back him fail to understand that Uganda is a land of spiritual and political matters. The spiritual matters like Karori Rwanga, etc., the political matters like Rutamaguzi are very good examples for the present generations. Many Ugandans, especially those that have been with the opposition, get flabbergasted by those schemes and link up with us and peacefully dissolve those schemes. Do you remember Tajja Kurayira? Do you remember Gen Z plan for the 4th of July, 2024, for the riots like those of Kenya, etc.? Do you remember those? They were rejected by the people. Have you noticed the number of NUP flag bearers for parliament that are pulling out? The criminal opposition must also stop intimidating Ugandans. You have no right to intimidate a Ugandan. Therefore, Ugandans, come out and vote. Nobody would intimidate you or endanger your security. Anybody who tries will have himself to blame and will end up badly. The future of Uganda is bright. Our first oil will come out next year. Regarding the police methods, I reject the practice of caning